Hi, everyone. My name is Kyla. Nice to be seeing you all today. A little bit about me is I am Kyla. I started my theater journey with a little bit of musical background with choir and orchestra. And now I currently work for the Disneyland Company. Just to preface, I don't speak for them or their company. Um, and today I am here with Elizabeth Diamond, right?
Mhm.
Want to make sure I get that right. Thank you for joining us today and agreeing to speak with us. She's an actor, singer, teacher, and director. She's a 30-year member of the Actors Equity and the Screen Actors Guild. And she has lived and worked in South Florida since 1992. She's also a four-time winner and multiple nominee of the Carbonell Award and has been in many, many shows. Your favorites, Ordinary Americans, Billy Elliot, Our Town, and Souvenir. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you being here.
I'm appreciating you being here too. Florida since just make sure we got everything here.
Mhm.
Um, so first things first, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, let's see. All those things she said. I live in Lake Worth, Florida. So here it's 7:30 my time, so it's 4:30 out there. So I've lived in this area for the last about I guess I've lived here 28 years, probably in the area about 30 years. I had, done other things with my life and finally decided later to go to university. And I went to Florida State University, got my bachelor's of fine arts there, and then did a little work at Mason Gross School of the Arts in New Jersey, which got me up into the New York area. And then Family Matters kind of brought me back down to Florida. And so I've been back down in Florida since 1990 and then have been working since 92. Um, Gratefully, thankfully, working pretty steadily. If in Florida, if you have a car and are willing to drive, um, you'll do all right because it's a long state. It's probably, not unlike California in that nothing is really centralized. So you have to be willing to get in the car and go wherever you're going to go. But I've been blessed with a lot of work in theater, mostly a little film and television.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of my questions, you said that you went to school and you ended up getting your bachelor's in fine arts, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What was it like going through that learning process of bettering yourself in musical theater? And did your bachelor's in fine arts kind of help you streamline that learning process?
Yeah, let's see. I went to a junior college first. I had married really young and then divorced and was in kind of a state of I didn't know what was next. So I started going to a junior college first and got my AA and then transferred to the university. And I majored actually as an actor, but because I sing, I did do a lot of musicals there, but I didn't get my degree in musical theater.
Got it.
But
Okay.
so my BFA is in acting. But I thank goodness I sing and I've made a living doing both, really. So yeah, that's why
Excellent.
when I said on there, Billy Elliot is one of my favorites. Yeah, that was a highlight, I think, and Souvenir as well. A play I did 12 years ago in West Palm, and I'm going to hopefully be redoing it again next spring here at Palm Beach Drumworks in West Palm Beach.
That's
So I get
awesome.
to
I'm
sing
glad to
off
hear you.
key for that, so that's fun.
Well, heck yeah.
Yeah.
What was your pivoting point, do you think, in your career? Or what kind of gave you the stepping stones to get you to where you are today?
Hmm. Um, I think I always had an appreciation for theater, and I was really lucky. My mom, who was not in the arts at all, but she brought me up. She would take me to the library, and she would check out plays at the library to read
Oh,
just
really?
for fun. And I didn't know anybody else that did that, and that's back
Mhm.
in, I'm 63, so that was back when I was a girl. And so that introduced me to theater. I didn't even know there was such a thing. And then
That's awesome.
I know, she was awesome. And she took me to area high schools because they were doing musicals and they were doing shows. And so that showed me that that's something to do. And then both of my parents very supportive of me doing it in high school. Doing, I think I was the lead in Hello Dolly my senior year in high school, all of that. And then I kind of took a path, and I had early marriage and did all that. And then after that ended, I went back to school, and it was the best thing I ever did because it taught me, one, that I was brighter than I thought I was. And there was some talent there that was then cultivated with an education. So getting my BFA, it's irreplaceable because you learn so much you didn't have any idea. You can have all the talent in the world, but it's important to be educated and to learn some skills that you might not have if you just jump into it.
That's awesome. It's
Yeah.
nice to have both sides of the experience, not only the cultivation from a young age, but to also study it for yourself.
Yes.
That's awesome. I didn't know that your mother did that for you. That's kind of
cool.
I
know, it's pretty cool.
As speaking of which, I'm not someone who was raised into musical theater. So as someone who was not raised in it, what is something you wish was taught to everyone, like being raised in musical theater? Like, what's something that you wish everyone could take from that?
Well, I really don't differentiate too much between a straight play and a musical, in that it still takes the same skills as far as your acting is concerned. And then you have the added skills of being able to sing, hopefully dance. My dancing, not so much, but I think you play the truth of whatever you're doing. I believe when I teach acting, I believe that acting is listening and responding. That's really all it is. Listening and responding honestly within the given circumstance. Now, in a musical, everything is just a little bit heightened. So I was always taught that when you sang, it's because that character had to get it out, and that's how they got it out. So it's just one step above, maybe. And obviously, I mean, we suspend that whole thing. It isn't real, but you still have to play it honestly. And so for me, it's all the same thing.
Got it.
And then in time.
Right, of course. Speaking of dancing, I'm not the greatest dancer either. But when it comes to dance skill, I'm someone who actually jumped over jazz, but I know everyone always speaks about starting with ballet. For you, what kind of steps did you take in your dancing to kind of prepare you for theater?
Well, again, when I was little, my mom was really supportive, and she took me to, I remember it was Barbara Lynn School of Dance when I was a little girl in Ohio. And that introduced me to ballet and jazz. That was what they taught then. And I never learned to tap, which I wish I had, because as a character woman, I could have been doing nonsense forever here, typing or tapping my way through that. But I think what it teaches you, it's a self-discipline for one, and that you get to be comfortable in your own body. I think if anything, that's what movement certainly can teach you, if you study that in school, even more than dancing. But and then working in a team, collaborating with everybody else, and all of that. I will admit, even at this age, I still, when I'm asked to dance, I'm like, oh, my brain just stops because it's not where my confidence is.
Got it.
But yeah. But how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. And that's how it is. If you get a role and you need to learn it, then you do it. You learn it.
Speaking of which, what was it like kind of going through the learning process from show to show? What skills did you usually find yourself having to learn over and over again? I know you said that dance isn't your forte per se, but but what was kind of your learning process from the beginning of your career to now?
Um, I would say I I meet each project with open eyes, an open heart, open ears. Um, I believe in preparing before you walk into a rehearsal space, so that I want to get my script ahead of time. I want to really, I don't necessarily believe in memorizing before you walk in there, because I think you can make some choices that you might not make organically if you had done that. It all depends what your situation is. You know, in old style dinner theater, you have to know your show in 10 days. So you might want to know some stuff before you walk in the room. But I do believe always to do some research. If it's research of the time period, if you're playing somebody that's an actual person, in a place that you can learn about, you know, all of that. Any research you do, you bring that in with you into the rehearsal room. And then I always believe you need to bring something to the table. So that you're not asking the director to give you everything. You have something to bring and add to the conversation. So I believe it is a very collaborative art form, but we all have to do our work before we walk in the room. Yeah, and I still maintain that.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Something for me was always trying to find my sound. I think that's something that I've been trying to learn through my time as both an actress and someone trying to get into musical theater.
Mm-hmm.
How did you discover your sound with your singing voice?
That's an interesting question. I remember distinctly when I was in junior high, we had to, I guess we were trying out for the choir or something. And so they had us sing in a quartet.
Mm-hmm.
And after my, whatever I did, everybody's response was so positive and all of this stuff. And I thought, oh, maybe I can sing. I didn't really know. So that gave me confidence. And then I think you just have to, you have to stay true to where you are. If you're not a belter, don't try to make yourself a belter.
Mm-hmm.
You're born with the voice you have. It doesn't mean you can't cultivate it and enrich it and learn technique, but don't try to be something you're not, because it's not going to last, and you can't do it 9 times a week. You have to know where you are and be honest with that. Voice lessons, learning with someone, getting coaching from someone, I think is very important. When I did Souvenir, as I mentioned 12 years ago, in that she has to sing all this opera, but you have to sing it all really badly. And I was nervous about losing my voice.
Mm-hmm.
You start goofing around and, not breathing right and all that. So I took lessons, after I had been trained already, I took lessons to keep me on my toes for that. And that was really good. And I learned some new things. So, yeah.
That's really good. Thank you. My next question was going to be, did you have any recommendations? But those are all great recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of voice lessons, you are a teacher, which is one of the other many things that you do. What made you want to become a teacher?
I think, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
I thought this is an extra way I could make a little bit of a living, just like in my off hours, my off time. But what I didn't know is how much I would enjoy it and how gratifying it was and how much people, because I'm teaching adults. I haven't been teaching younger people. I teach adults. And how much it means to them. They bring in so much to the room and they take away so much more than I think I'm giving them. So I find that really, and I love being with people that want to learn. So they're already open-minded and ready. And I'm so gratified by the end of the class. Now, I did teach some young people last summer, and I found that as well very gratifying. They were high school students, but to see their openness and how hard they worked and their will to learn and grow and try. That's the hard part with adults sometimes, is they're too scared to try. but we
Right.
have to, and that's what our rehearsal room is for. That should be your safety zone, and that's where you try and you fall down, maybe literally, hopefully not, but you will falter and you'll make errors and mistakes, but it's all good. It's all an important thing, and you learn just so much more. Teaching acting and taking acting, you learn so much about yourself as well as whatever character you're portraying and the play you're doing. I think it's a great thing.
That's awesome. The comments here I was reading,
Yeah,
Ethan Doggin
my
wanted to
glasses on.
ask, he wanted to ask for young people who want to get voice lessons in musical theater, do you have people you recommend?
Well, I would look in your area. I don't know where Ethan is from, but I would look in your area. Um, you know, most people would say you want to start, you want to start with some classic music before you start, singing Hamilton and,
Right.
stuff like that. You want to cultivate your voice and the instrument that you have in here. So you want someone that knows what they're doing. So I would, you can literally just Google and see who's, doing voice lessons. But I also would look at universities in your area or other places in your area. They usually would offer something or know somebody. And the local theaters in your area would certainly know somebody. Yeah, because a lot of people are willing to give lessons and augment their profession with that. So, but it's important to do that.
Right.
It's a muscle, just like any other muscle in your body, and you want to keep your voice, in shape.
That's awesome. Speaking of using that muscle,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I had told you earlier when we were just talking that I come from a different arts background, more like choir and
Mm-hmm.
orchestra and musical background. What do you think is important to transfer over in terms of skill into theater? What do you think to take from music that you could
Hmm.
like transfer from your skills?
Okay. I think, especially choir singing,
Hmm.
and I will tell you, I miss singing in a choir. I miss blending
Yeah.
my voice with other people. Um,
Hmm.
and now as a character woman, I don't get to do as much of that because I'm not usually in a chorus of a play. So I really do miss that. I love that. Um, but I think the idea of collaboration and working with others, becoming part of a whole, is something very
Hmm.
transferable into a
Okay.
musical or into a play, that you all are there for the same purpose and that you are there to make it the best it can be and sound as good as it can be. So I would think that's it. Obviously, if you've only been singing and you haven't acted at all, take an acting class. They're out there.
Hmm.
Um, there's plenty of places everywhere. Usually, I mean, I don't know, who's listening to this necessarily, but um, most theaters offer classes. Both professional and civic theaters usually offer classes.
Hmm.
Get your feet wet, give it a
Right.
try first, and see what you think. You know, but read
Perfect.
plays. Start to read plays. They're available to you. Like I told you, my mom, took me to the library, but they are in libraries, and you can, now with stuff you can buy online, you can find practically anything. So just find something that interests you and read it and say, oh, okay, this is how this works.
Hmm.
Education.
That's a great recommendation. Thank you. You once again answered my second question, which is what do you think
Uh-oh.
is an important skill to be learned? But yeah, it's perfect reading plays and watching plays.
Yeah, and
Um,
I just staying open, seeing as much as you can. One of the things I always tell my students, um, offer to usher at a theater. Professional
hmm.
theaters have volunteer ushers, and they are always looking for people. And then that way you get to see a show for free. You get to be around that. You get to watch. Um, volunteer for, you know, a theater in any capacity, and then you're around that element, and you can learn so much just by being around that and seeing what they're doing.
That's an awesome recommendation.
Hmm.
Especially since that is one of the ways that you kind of got your foot in the door was by kind of like reading and watching plays. It kind of created that love for you as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, who was your greatest inspiration in the theater and acting world?
It's funny. Just before I got on with you, I was talking to my brother, and he somehow he asked me, and I said it was I was probably in junior high probably. And my parents had gone out for New Year's Eve. And so I was home by myself, but old enough that I could be by myself. And I remember watching a movie called Come Back Little Sheba. And it was with Shirley Booth. And she was an amazing actor, character woman. And I remember thinking, I want to do that. And I want to do it as good as her. And I remember that really distinctly. And she's been my idol ever since, actually. But something, hits you, something like going to live theater that gets in your, gut and just makes you feel something. Practically the whole world watched Hamilton, this last weekend. Oh, yeah. And it moves you. You can't help but be moved. And to be a part of that and know that you might be that person to move someone else, what a gift that is.
Seriously, yeah.
I love what I do. I've been doing it a long time, and I still thrill at the fact that I get to do it. It's killing me right now that none of us are getting to do it live.
Oh, yeah.
We're all using Zoom. We're doing readings and everything, but it's nothing like being in the room. Being in the room where it happened, So, yeah.
That's awesome. Speaking, you really did find your whole career there in Florida, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
That you've just gone to many different theaters. I thought since most of us here are in California, I wonder if you could tell us about what it was like seeing certain theaters kind of like come up and be shut down, since you're just in that one area for so long.
Yeah.
I think I don't remember exactly the name of the one, but there was a theater that recently went under. But what was it kind of like for you in your career to see that happen with theaters around you?
Well, and I've seen that throughout my career, actually, because there's been times in our, just in the recent history, where theaters lost a lot of their funding because of, most theater run by patrons, not just ticket holders, but by people that are giving money to the theater, that are benefactors. And when benefactors lost their money, that was a huge turnaround for some theaters too, that they lost so much of that. So it's not just now that I've seen that, but certainly through my career. It's wonderful to see small companies come up. You want them to succeed, especially younger people that are trying to start out a company. It's so exciting and it's necessary. That's what's going to keep theater going in our country. But financially, it's really rough. And so most theaters are so on just a shoestring at best. Even the big theaters, that we know in the country, still are it's a scary time for everybody. And I know that a lot of the theaters around here did first wave of layoffs, then a second wave of layoffs. Now they're at just a bare minimum in the theater. Even canceling like their cleaning people. I mean, everything is just getting so basic just to keep the theater going so that hopefully they will hold on to the next thing. It's heart-wrenching to watch that.
Right.
And knowing you have no control over it because they're the ones that are going to hire me. So it's, I'm watching them and I'm willing to do anything, that I could to help with those things. And most theaters are trying to do virtual things, not unlike what you're doing here. Some people are doing readings, they're doing virtual happy hours. I'm doing something like that next week where I'm playing a character that I played this last year at a virtual happy hour. You'll have a cocktail, with her, that kind of thing. People are just trying to be creative. And actually that's an amazing part of this is that people are really thinking outside the box because they've had to. If there's a positive, that would be it, I think, is that everybody can kind of step back and go, whoa, we were going at such a pace. We were kind of losing ourselves maybe. So this is allowing people to slow down and kind of take a look. I would say that. But, as actors, it's a killer. I mean, it really is.
Right.
and it's our livelihood. This is what I do for my
Right.
living. So it's frightening. And
Yeah,
we just don't know
course.
what the outcome or when the outcome will be. I will say, though, to those listening, we have to remember the theater has been with us since the Greeks. So it's going to survive. It just is going to go through some stuff, some rough water, but
Right.
we will survive.
Thank you. We're very lucky that we're able to have some creativity with this time as well.
Yes.
I know I, for one, have also been trying to find some ways to still be acting and be creative. And it is a little bit different out here in California than it is in Florida, I think. Just in general, not right now, of course, since we're all just over Zoom trying to make it the best that we can. But most of us from California, I heard of something called theater season over on in Florida. Could you tell me a little about what theater season is?
Well, this is what I think they mean is that because we have so many what we call snowbirds here, which are people that live up north, and it tends to be on my coast of Florida. I live on the East Coast. We tend to have people from the Northeast. They just come down US Interstate 95, and this is where they come in the winter. So we do see a huge influx come usually after Thanksgiving, and then they'll leave maybe after Easter time. But that's kind of old days. That's not so much really anymore. So most theaters do perform throughout the year. It used to be, they would just perform in the fall and then maybe at the beginning of the summer, and then maybe close for renovation or redoing whatever. But now most people offer something all year long, which is why you can actually, perform here and make a living.
That's awesome. And you really have done that, which I think is so amazing.
Thank you.
We got another message from the chat from John Peterson. Oh, hi, John. He wanted to know what your thoughts are on male singers studying with male teachers and female singers with female teachers.
I don't know if I have a real thought. I think I've only had female teachers, but that was just circumstances. I don't think it was an actual choice. I don't know if I could honestly speak to that. When I was in high school, I had a male teacher, and he was marvelous. And then college, and then outside of that, it were two or three women. So it makes sense, I suppose. They know how things work in them. I mean, I'm making it up. I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't want to say something that's not true. I think find someone that you relate to and that you trust, and that, your working relationship is good. Not somebody that'll just be, you want somebody that's going to be supportive and really be with you and help you learn, So, sorry, John.
One thing that people always want to ask someone who's very successful in the theater world is how to nail the perfect audition. Do you have certain tips and tricks and secrets for preparing for an audition? I know you talked earlier about making sure you always have something to bring to the table, but do you have any other tips and tricks?
This, when I went to Florida State University, that was where I got my BFA. We had a whole thing on interviewing and auditioning, and whole semester or two or whatever. And it really is a skill. Probably the most important thing I would say to remember is that you are auditioning for people that want you to be good and want you to be the one they're looking for. So go in with that idea. Don't go in and think, oh, it's me against them against me. Yes, you're standing up there and you feel naked because it's just you standing there in front of them, and they are sizing you up, whether it's how you look, how you sound, what your talent level is. But go in there with that idea that you could be the one they're looking for. And, that's great. On top of that, though, you want to be as prepared as possible. Don't,
Right.
if it's a big audition, don't go in with something you just learned the night before. That's just foolish, because your nerves are going to kick in and you're not going to know what you're doing. So
Right.
really know your stuff cold. Run your monologue backwards and forwards, when you're doing your dishes, when you're in the shower, when you're driving, whatever it is. Just have it in you, so it's in your bones. You don't have to think about it. Same with your music. Don't try something out that you think, oh, I'll try that. But show something that's going to show you to your best ability. So obviously, if you have some money notes in your music, go ahead and show that in your 16 bars if you can. Show them what you have, and then that can at least get you back in the room for a callback. But mostly just really go in with the confidence that you have in yourself. That I always think of auditioning as almost like test taking. And I kind of liked test taking because it allowed me to know if I knew what I knew. And I think that is something I take into the room, and also just be comfortable with yourself. And remember, your audition starts from the moment you walk in that door until you close it behind you. And so even if you screw up royally in whatever you did, still go out with some confidence. Show them that you know who you are. And your time to show who you are is, hi, my name is Beth Diamond, and this is blah, blah, blah. Right? That's the time to show who you are. The rest is you're going to show what you can do. And then the confidence in which you walk out of the room, I think, is important. So, never like, oh God, because that just makes people embarrassed for you. Right. Nobody likes to feel that. So,
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Go in there and act. That's what you're there for.
Right. The greatest advice you can give, right?
Yeah.
How do you personally fine tune like your acting skills?
Repetition, probably. Everybody has to sit down on their bed and memorize their lines, and the more you do it, the more it gets in your bones. I love to rehearse, so that's never a hard thing for me. I mean, and as I've gotten older, it's harder to learn the stuff, I think. I remember when I was young, I don't ever remember studying. I learned it in rehearsal, and that was that. That's not true. Hate to tell you. As you get older, but that's the joy of it. And also just really giving it thought. Just remember that what you're doing is a craft, it's an art, and this is what you want to do. Treat it like that. It's precious, it's important. So give it its due, give it its time. It's not just that time you're in rehearsal at all. You may be there for 6 or 7 or 8 hours a day, but it's all that work you do outside of the rehearsal room that you bring back the next day. And that's
being able to come back and show like, hey, this is all the work I've done.
Yeah. Cause I know I've had directors will say, give you a direction and it's not how you see something. And I'm certainly at a point in my life where I'm not willing to just do it because I was told to, if I really believe in something. And so I'll say, give me time on that. Let me take that home. Home and think about it. And then I can come back in and go, oh yeah, I see what you're saying now, or whatever. So yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a collaboration. It's all a collaboration.
Being able to show your effort when you come back, showing that you're actually putting your all into it.
Sure.
I like that.
And I'm telling you, that is what is going to get you hired the next time. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're a team player and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that you are willing to work with each other and try to do it together. I think that really helps. That gets you the next job when they're thinking, oh, who would be right for that? Oh, she was great to work with. I want her back,
Well, especially because I believe in a previous interview, you said that there were some theater companies who would actually call you and say, hey, we have this going on and we think you'd be good for this part.
Yeah, that's where we all hope to be.
Right.
It doesn't happen all the time, but it's a blessing when it does. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a great thing when somebody calls you and says, oh yeah, I'd like you to do this. So
that's amazing.
I would also say though, part of our job is to see what season, is going on in somebody's theater and see the roles that you might be right for. And don't be shy about contacting them. That's what sending your resume or a picture postcard. You know, and now there's group auditions where they may go, or find out when their season auditions are. Be proactive, because there's a whole lot of people that want to do what we do, and we have to differentiate ourselves from everybody else. So part of that is on you. It's a business.
Speaking of which, you said that you branched out into kind of movies and TV a little bit. How does that differ from your auditions with theater and your actual skills in theater?
I've been a theater actor, you know, my whole working career. So it's certainly where I am most comfortable. You know, I always joke about that. You know, in the rest of the world, we don't always know what's going to happen, but in a play we do, because we rehearsed it. I mean, it's coming next, so it's where I'm the most comfortable. But film and TV is different because it's smaller. Everything is just smaller. Actually, working on Zoom is kind of interesting because you get to see, like right now I'm using my hands and it's like up in my face, whatever. On stage, you don't worry about that as much. But everything is just smaller. You're really talking to one person as opposed to 400 people. So in that regard, it's smaller, but acting is still acting, and it just has to be as real and as sincere as possible. So, yeah, you know that, you see it where people will hold their hand up like this, like they're looking in the camera, trying to get you. But you kind of have to think of that, like, where do I fit in there, and what they're seeing.
That's awesome. And then I also, like I said, I researched you a little bit, and I saw that you were nominated and a winner of a few Carbonell Awards. What was it like to be recognized for all your hard work in that form?
Well, it's a little, you have to, I believe you have to take everything with a little grain of salt, otherwise, I don't know. It's lovely to be recognized for your work. I am not, though, of the idea that because I won this, that someone else was lesser than that. It just happened to be. I don't know how these things happen. I don't know how the voting happens or whatever. It's very nice to be recognized, and it's very nice to have the thing to put on your shelf. But you're never, you're always going to be. It's the next thing you do. People are still going to make you prove the next thing you do. So you kind of can't rest on that. It's nice to be nominated. I'm nominated again this year. They were supposed to be in April. Everything got canceled. So now they're going to do a virtual one in August. And actually, I'm nominated twice for Spitfire Grill and for a play called Ordinary Americans. So we'll see what happens. But, either way, you go on.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I also personally wanted to know, what was your favorite role you've ever done?
Probably Souvenir. For those people that don't know the show, it's about a woman named Florence Foster Jenkins, and she was a very wealthy woman, lived in New York City back in the 20s and 30s, and she had a love of music. She loved it so much, and she would put on these salons, where the small groups would come and hear her sing. And what they all knew was that she could not sing at all. I mean, not at all. And there are recordings. But she had enough money, and she would do a lot of these things as charities for, organizations. So people knew it, but it was sort of like nobody said anything. It was the secret. And then time went on, and she did, in fact, perform at Carnegie Hall. She rented the space, and she sold out more than Frank Sinatra or the Beatles. So, and she sang completely off key. So you can YouTube it, whatever. Florence Foster Jenkins. So she was, and there was a movie a couple years ago with Meryl Streep. She played her, and I think it was called Florence, I think that was, the name of it. But this show is just two people. It's the pianist and her. So it shows their relationship. And then it comes to a point where she finally in the play, she realizes the audience is laughing at her. And he has to kind of subdue her. And in the end, he says, this is how she sounded, but this is how she thinks she sounds. So you spend the whole play singing off key, and then in the end you have to sing the Ave Maria, and you have to sing it as well as you possibly can.
Wow, that's an amazing
So
role.
yeah, it's quite a thing. I don't think I've ever worked that hard, but it's also nothing is that gratifying either. So I think that's my very favorite.
I don't blame you. It sounds like a really fun role to be in as well.
Yeah, great.
What was the most challenging role you've ever had to do?
You'd think it would be something that was like maybe more physically active, but I think I did a play some years back now called Copenhagen, and it was a 3-person play. You're on a bare stage. You have no props. We had 3 chairs. And I remember one of the actors at one point took his jacket off, and I said, wait, he has a prop. You just never feel so naked as you do out there with just you. And the play is about nuclear physics. So it's a lot. And they play with time. So they'll go forward and backwards in time. And so the concentration on it was so hard for all 3 of us. And we were just like, we'd be backstage thinking, oh, and then you go out and do it. And it was so marvelous. You know, when you're in the middle of it, it's marvelous. But I've never been that tired mentally.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
How did you really like
one
overcome?
Other thing. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, how did you like overcome like the challenges of that role?
Sure, Will. You know, you have to do it. It's your job, right? It's your job. And those people paid the same as the people the night before. So there's no being tired. There's no being like, oh, I don't want to do this. And, you know, I mean, you know, in professional theater, it's true. The show does have to go on, you know, no matter what's happening in your personal life. So you do it, you know, but,
Got it. Yeah.
But that's, you know, that's part of it. That's part of it.
Right.
And I'm grateful.
Right. Do you ever hit any roadblocks when auditioning for shows?
Well, okay, here, case in point right now, people are starting to want us to audition on video right now because it's not safe to go in person. So for me, that's a little bit of a roadblock because I'm really a little bit behind the time with all of that. I haven't done that much because I am a known quantity here. I haven't had to do that much, but now, you know, that's what people are doing. So for me, that's a little bit of a roadblock. But I'm learning that if I don't get on that bandwagon, I'll be left behind. We can't afford to just go, oh, well, that's not how I've done it before. No, it's not. And, you know, so I suppose for me, that's the main thing. Also, I am a believer and you need to go and show yourself, even though you may not see yourself in everything they're showing, you know, in their lineup. Although I don't think you should waste anybody's time if you're completely not right for something, but you never know. And you may go there, especially if it's a general audition, you may go there and they'll remember you for something else later. Right. You know, I certainly have been told, like, you know, we've seen you a couple times now and finally we have something for you. So, that's good. You gotta be smart about it though. You know, figure it out. You know, you're not going to go.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, have you found yourself having to adjust like as time goes on, especially since you've been in this One Florida?
Yeah, I think a little bit is, you know, I'm afraid now to you don't want to go and be bad in your audition because all these people know you. You don't want them to go, oh, wow, she's losing it. You know, she's really. So you still have to be, you know, on your game no matter when you walk in the room. You can't count on your past success. You still have to bring it each time. Yeah. So.
Got it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let me see if I have any other questions here before I check the chat again.
I was going to say something when you asked me about what's one of the hardest things I've done or I worked.
Yeah, one of your most challenging roles.
Yeah, it wasn't even so much role, But
Uh-huh.
there's a theater down here, City Theater, it's called, in Miami, and they do short plays. So it's a short play
Hmm.
festival, and they've been around for 20 years. Actually, they just had their 20th anniversary.
Wow.
Or may have been their 25th anniversary, I'm not sure. And I've done, I think, 11 or 12 of those summers.
Mhm.
So in that, sometimes you'll do 6 roles in a night,
Wow.
because they're short plays, they're 10 or
Hmm.
15-minute plays. Um, and that is exceptionally exhausting because at the end of the day, it's like you've been a lead in every play you're in.
Right.
There's no off time. It's like being in school. You go from this hour and a half in this scene, and then you run to the next room and do an hour and a half or whatever it is in that scene. And then you have your lunch, and then you run to another place and do that. So there's never any time for you to just get your bearings. So that's another thing where you have to go home, and it's really, you have to be disciplined and stuff like that. You can't afford to like think you can have much of a social life or anything during that rehearsal period, because you are
Hmm.
working the whole time. You really are, to stay on
Right.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know that for me, whenever I do, um, I've had to do some shows where I have 2 hours of acting
Hmm.
nonstop, and then I only get about 30-minute break before I have to do another 2 hours of
Yeah.
acting.
Yeah.
And on those days, I go home and just crash.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so as someone who is in this field a lot, do you find yourself getting that exhaustion a lot?
Well, yeah, I think with time you kind of learn how to pace yourself, but you do want to make
Right.
sure that you're properly eating and you're staying hydrated and you're
Hmm.
taking care and getting rest. It's theater is really fun,
Hmm.
but it's still a job. And
Right.
so you still owe that theater the same performance each time. So you
Hmm.
have to do whatever you can to make sure that you are, up to the task.
Right.
So, yeah.
Is there usually something that you do to kind of help strengthen that? I like to think of it kind of as a muscle, at least with because it's
Right.
a different part of your brain that you're using. Is there
Hmm.
something that you do kind of to strengthen that muscle to
Well, I
help
think I've
yourself get a
been,
little less exhausted?
I think, in my head, that muscle
Hmm.
in there um, has stayed pretty keen, I hope,
Hmm.
because I've been doing it for so long. Um,
Right.
they tell people as they age to like do crossword puzzles, do those things to keep your mind going. And I think
Hmm.
somewhat, learning lines has been beneficial in that regard.
Right.
But the rest of me, right now, I had injured my knee last year in a show, and
Oh no.
so right now I'm going to a neighborhood pool every day and really
Mhm.
working that knee because I know I have to be ready for whenever
Mhm.
anything comes back. So
Right.
yeah, so I'm trying to take good care in that way and take care of
Hmm.
myself.
That's good information. You also said that you are a character actor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for you, what does that look like when you go into auditions?
Mm. Well, I think partially, even as a young person, I was never the leading lady or the ingenue. I was always the best friend kind of person,
Hmm.
and I probably have always played older than I am. Now I'm
Hmm.
finally, old enough to play the roles I've been playing. So by that I mean a character actor. I don't think it makes a difference in my acting.
Hmm.
It just means that I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be the romantic lead.
Hmm.
Um, there's very few. I've had that opportunity, and
Yeah.
they were very few and far between and very precious.
Hmm.
Um, I played Meg in Damn Yankees once, where I was the wife of the
Hmm.
baseball player, and she is a character woman. She's not really, but she gets to be the romantic lead to this beautiful young man, and it was
Hmm.
such an unexpected thing. That was fun for me.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I think my first stage kiss was a woman
Hmm.
because I just never get kissed. I'm not the ingenue. I'm not the leading lady. So,
Hmm.
but I don't think it makes any difference. It's still
Hmm.
just the character I'm playing is not
Right.
that, but it's still the same. Everything's still the same amount of prep, the same amount of everything.
Still put your best 110% into it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
As someone who I got casted a lot when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
as male roles, being a female,
Ah.
and so I definitely I
Mm-hmm.
felt discouraged more
Sure.
when I was younger because I would never be cast as a girl.
Hmm.
And so for me, it was kind of having to overcome that idea of because I was a role that wasn't like myself, I was lesser.
Oh no.
Um,
Mm-mm.
but I eventually got to the point where I realized it was still a really nice role, and even in the role that I was in, it was always a really big like part.
Yeah.
People would come to me after and say you did amazing and stuff. For you,
That's
did you ever
important.
have,
That's really important to remember.
yeah,
Yeah.
did you ever have moments like that where you kind of felt like dragged down a little bit, where you had to kind of overcome your own ego or anything?
Hmm. I well, I suppose like one of my most unfavorite things in a review when they'll say the ever reliable
Hmm.
Elizabeth Diamond. And you think,
Mm,
oh, what's that mean? And
right,
yet I do know what that means. That means I'm bringing it. I'm bringing it.
right.
You know, I I'm still there and they're still casting me, so I have to think that I'm still a viable thing. So I'm and the beauty of, I think, being a character woman is I get to play stuff I get to say things I would never say in person. I get
Right.
to play an emotion I would never ever do in my real life.
Hmm.
Um, and it's interesting because this is something I was told, and it was a good lesson for me to learn, was one particular theater, and each theater will kind of see you differently. But one particular theater would tend to put me in roles where I was a bit tougher,
Hmm.
unlikable, um, not, I don't know, just not very pleasant. And then somebody told me, they said, well, it's because you come in a soft package.
Hmm.
So I've become more three-dimensional to an audience member. And once I learned that, I was like, okay, that's something I can kind of market, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, I just love doing what I do. I don't want to play the
Awesome.
same thing all the time. That's
Hmm.
boring. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Hmm.
Something different every time is really nice,
Yeah.
refreshing even.
Hmm.
Okay, so I just have one last question before we
Uh-huh.
wrap things up here, and that is, what is the number one thing you can recommend to someone trying to find their way in the arts?
Stay true to yourself.
Hmm.
If this is what you want to do, then go for it.
Hmm.
Don't let anybody tell you no. The world will tell you soon enough if
Hmm.
this is for you. So don't deny yourself that wanting to try it. Because, like I said, the world is harsh, and the theater world is harsh.
Hmm.
Um, they'll tell you if what you have is what they're looking for. But I think you have to try, and
Hmm.
get yourself the best education you can, in any way you can.
Hmm.
Open your own doors. Don't wait. Nobody's going to
Hmm.
find you in your living room. They're
Right.
just not. You have to be your own manager, your own marketer, everything. But most of all, just believe in yourself that you
Hmm.
are, you know, something to bring in the room, and somebody will take notice of that.
Got it. Thank you so
Mhm.
much.
You are so
And
welcome.
thank you so much for joining us today and for allowing me to really rack your brain,
Oh, my pleasure.
and for getting our questions answered. I really appreciate it.
Good.
And thank you everyone for also tuning in.
Mhm.
I know that I learned a lot of great things. So
Good.
thank you, Beth. I
Thank
hope
you.
to be hearing from you soon.
I look forward to it. Take care.
You
Stay
too.
safe. Wear your mask.
Yes, please. Bye.